Welcome to another edition of the NSCAC Behind the Bench presents. Today we have Larissa Mills with us. She's the founder and CEO of the Mental Game Academy. Larissa, welcome. It's usually a lot more simpler and much easier flow. Today, I think we just wanted to change it up leading up into the Thanksgiving weekend. Make it a little bit exciting for everybody.
Yep. So I can't see the slides anywhere.
Okay,
right?
So I'm going to share the slides right now. Okay.
Okay. But I can just like go. So anyway, I'm going to introduce myself. Yes, I'm Larissa Mills. I'm a cognitive behavioral sports specialist. What does that mean? It means essentially I study how the brain learns when we are watching or using excessive phone use. It could also mean we are watching too much video, or we're watching too much short video. Our brains are staying up late on social media. Our brains are staying up late on different parts of tech. I had the screen, but I think we lost it there. I don't have a slide screen, but
is that better?
Oh yeah, that's perfect. It's yeah. So essentially what we do here is we equip the athletes with mental skills because they have been on phones for 22,000 hours by 16. So all of you, I work with different parts of the Canadian program in soccer, parts of the Premier League in the UK. And what we're finding is by 16 is this prime age where, kids are ready to go out there, but they're missing something. And they have been missing their mental skills and gaps in their emotional development, and they're behind. There's no other way to say it. Not just because of phones, but it's because of the time spent on phones. So if you want to just scroll up there, Valerio, a little bit further. I had to give you a different slide deck, so we'll have to go up and play around with this a little bit. But there's like in the next one. Yeah, sorry, this is not the actual deck I wanted to use, but it was the quickest one I could email them. But essentially today, you as coaches have so many more concerns than you did 30 years ago. It is not the same coaching. If I were to ask you in the audience and ask you, what are your coaching concerns? You would tell me my top 10 would be parents, athletes' different behaviors, and the barriers those cause. You love coaching soccer and football. I know that. But the barrier that we are challenged with today is behavior and where the brain is in development. So you may have a 16 or 20-year-old on your team. I just worked with different teams yesterday in the NHL. I can tell you, the younger the brain, the more behind it is in terms of development and in terms of focus, in terms of attention, in terms of problem solving, because they've been on phone 6 hours a day watching instead of 6 hours a day doing. And those are essentially your barriers. So if you would want to scroll up there, Lario, just the one. So essentially this is, actually this number is older. The average is 24,000 to 30,000 hours an athlete is on their phone. And so when you come to meet and teach this athlete, this incredible being, well, they're not paying attention, and you have to repeat what you're saying multiple times. And that is frustrating, but also it's an ongoing concern. This is not going to get better unless phones are away, unless kids can get off phones and kids can learn how to mentally think. Right now, I bet you when you tell them something, they're either crying or quitting. That's usually what it is, or they're denying. I call it the different INGs. They're going to deny they do something and they won't apply what they're doing and execute it in terms of the game. So this is Roy Allen Birch. We work with him with a bunch of swimmers, and they were getting out of the pool and checking their phones. They were like, this is a while ago before COVID. And he was getting frustrated because he's like, you know what? I coach them and then they just get out. He's like, no. I'm like, no, they don't get out of the pool. Put the phones in a bag. Have phone protocols for your teams. We do that for different teams. We'll come in and work with soccer clubs all over. It doesn't matter. Portugal, US, Sweden, it doesn't matter, because phones and the behavior that they cause or lack of skills is your main barrier right now. If you can scroll up to that little chart there, Valerio, I'm going to show you what happens to the brain. So essentially on just 2 hours of phone time, but yeah, there's just a diagram there. Just go back to the bubbles. Can you get to the bubbles? There's like bubbles like on a chart. So just go back. Yeah, that one. So in 2 hours of phone use a day, thanks. 2 hours of phone use a day, our kids are going to suffer. They suffer because I even have kids who are 14 staying up till midnight or 1, and they're on their phones in their bedroom. And then you wonder why they can't get up, and they're moody and they can't focus. This is a cycle. We call it the toxic cycle of athlete entrapment, where they're there, and it's just a downward cycle. Now, not only is it going to affect their injuries, not only is it going to affect their attention in that practice, but the NCAA coaches that we have just surveyed are very concerned about the fact that none of their athletes want to be captain. They are too afraid to be highlighted, too afraid to be on a stage, don't want to be corrected, don't want to have conflict, and they don't have the skills to manage it. Now, some of them do, but 30 years ago, you wouldn't have seen this. You wouldn't have seen this at all, right? I'm worried about these two bubbles on the outside. So this bubble here, decrease in confidence, directly affects the brain and performance, because if they scroll just 30 scrolls, that's it, their brain goes negative in terms of its wiring, and now they're here, and here they sit. And then they go to practice or they go to school, more negative, more touching of the phone. And essentially think about your brain being attached to your nervous system, and every time you touch your phone, you're ticking it off. And at the end of the day, your brain is kind of done. And it's had so much dopamine that it's kind of dopey. It doesn't want to think, and it's moody. And that's essentially the cycle that's happening. But it affects that confidence bubble, which we all know in psychological performance. If a child has confidence but not as much skill, they're even going to outdo the kids with the exceptional skill. Confidence plays a key role in the identity of the athlete. And I've seen athletes go out there and completely become fierce. And when we are in beast mode, which is green, on our traffic light of emotions, and we teach the kids how to get from red to green, yellow to green, all on their own in 10 skills. And they know, I got 9-year-olds doing this program. I have 30-year-olds doing this program. And the 30-year-olds do pick it up faster than the 9-year-olds. But once the 9-year-olds do it in their own little brain, they're kind of like, wow, I feel like I'm not had superpowers. I'm like, exactly. So every age can do this. I'm worried about this bubble here, though. This fear of failure, this fear of making mistakes, is from the projection on their virtual world. They're obsessed with their virtual worlds. And it doesn't translate into the real world, into your coaching world, right? So essentially, this fear of making mistakes is because everyone's posting all these perfect things, these perfect photos, these perfect moments, and they're not. They're not perfect moments. So they go on or online and they compare themselves. They think, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not, oh, look at their reel, look at their kick's better than mine, their passing's better, but oh, they have better equipment than me. Boom. We just went into yellow on our traffic light, and you cannot play in yellow. And I distinctly recall a few of the players during World Cup, they were saying they don't go online, they don't touch their phones because it makes them agitated and kind of have brain fog and doubt themselves. That is exactly what phones do to our brains. And as an athlete who, well, let's just say if you're paid on contract, you got to perform, right? So can you just go up maybe, I think it's 1 there, Valerio? And just, yep. Yeah, oh yeah, go down to 5 ways social media impacts the brain. And we'll go to that slide 1 there. So I'm going to talk about sleep first. On that slide there, I think it says sleep and the tips for sleep. There are 5 ways in which social media impacts the body. Sleep, brain chemistry, self-esteem. It creates addiction and bad habits. And then it actually preys on the decision-making in the brain, where the hippocampus is. And here's the scary thought. Dr. Linda Spallini from Italy, but she works with McGill University. She is doing a study and has already published a study, a very valid study, on the more we have short video watching and the more years that kids have done it, their hippocampus is actually shrinking. Well, if you're an athlete, you need it to get bigger because it's part of your cognitive processing. So part of how you problem solve a situation mentally, not physically. And how fast can you do it? Because soccer, you need to be thinking without thinking. We need to get automatic. So can you scroll up there to sleep there, Valerio? Yeah. So sleep is the number one thing we can control. We have to look at what we can control for these athletes. Sleep is one thing. And what we do for these athletes, we have an 8-week program where at night, there's no phones in their rooms. And an hour before bed, they're out of their rooms. In fact, we ask the athletes not to take their phones upstairs at all, because let's just think about it as an adult. Nothing good happens after midnight. Well, nothing good ever happens after 10 in a kid's room on a phone. In fact, the police say that is the most dangerous time. Everyone can be on Snapchat. And that's where most kids are. And they have an algorithm of where they go. They can be on their phones anywhere from 3 to 11 all night, 8 hours a day. I have NCAA athletes on their phones 12 hours a day. And now they're not playing anymore. They were first string. And now they're being scratched because they're obsessed with their phones and obsessed with people think. And we are creating this comparativism in our society, and we don't equip the kids with mental skills to deal with it, which we do here. So sleep, once you get it under control, and how they wake up, really important. They're different kids. I just started with 400 athletes in the last 4 weeks. And in less than 2 weeks, they were already skating faster, running faster, and their base testing was incredible. Better than they've ever had it. So, and their cognitive processing, how do I make a decision? Who do I pass to? That's just so much faster. So in terms of the brain chemistry, how it affects your brain chemistry, can you just move up one there, Valerio? I don't know if there is a video in the other presentation that I had, but let's go to that brain chemistry one. Yeah, the brain, yeah. So if you touch your phone, which is over 176 times a day, that is a child. Adults can be anywhere between 150 and 300 times a day. And every time we touch our phones, we're spiking dopamine and cortisol. So the worst time to check your phone is actually in the morning, because your dopamine is the lowest. And when you check it, that is the top of where you want to be all day. So if you wake up, eat, we have our athletes doing 5 wins by 9 a.m. in the morning. 5 things they got to do: roll, eat, plan their meal, get their stuff, make their bed, do their mental skills before they get out of bed. Bam. They feel great because they feel like they've already done a whole bunch of things. And our brains as humans, I did study neuroscience and cognitive science. Our brains love being busy. Our brains fire more when we make it fire instead of sitting here watching. And so the nervous system, in this case, when we're checking our phone and getting a notification like who liked my dress, oh, who commented on my post when I won that game, they are revving their nervous systems up every time, and the brain gets so frustrated because it's tired of it. So can you imagine 176 zaps to your nervous system and brain all day? It actually starts the cycle of anxiety, but it's not anxiety, it's phone addiction. So phone addiction and clinical anxiety are symptoms wise very parallel. But when we take the phone away from the child with anxiety, right? It's not anxiety. When they start thinking healthy and they can actually think in a healthy way, then it's phone addiction. So it may feel like anxiety, but it is not. But that is why so many kids today, hence Jonathan Haidt's book, which really helped my work. I'm more about the solutions based on how to balance, how to have strategies in the home, and how to work with parents. So we help coaches, we help the athletes, and we have programs for each in your sport ecosystem of soccer, because essentially when we consult different coaching clubs, they bring us in and we help with their athletes and they see a difference. But the coaches, we're at a really, negative situation here, because we've let kids have phones 20, 25 years, and now their brain is less developed, less equipped. They don't have confidence. They're not as resilient, and they can't problem solve as much. So we're stuck, because now we absolutely have to go back to the beginning of their psychological foundation, equip them while helping them taper their phone. Bam. Now they're feeling really exceptional, getting phone calls going, Larissa, I totally screwed up in my first half, and then I scored in my second half, And I used my skills, and I wasn't on my phone 2 hours, like, and they're happy because they're happier and it's in their control. So just scroll up to 3, which is self-esteem. So yes, phones are addictive, but what the damage does is to their behavior and their self-esteem. So when we look at really high level athletes, boys and girls who are, let's say, 16 and 18. Oh, thanks, Valerio. I could read. I was very impressed with myself because I could kind of see it without glasses. I was like, yay. What social media does to the self-esteem is a complete attack on confidence and who we are. I am very lucky. I grew up in an era where I got to find out who I was. I am very afraid for this generation growing up. I call it the digital generation, phone generation, whatever you want to call it, but they're finding out who they think they should be from social media. That is a very dangerous thing. They're being told who they should look like, what they should be, rather than finding out and discovering, which is a more authentic, permanent way to concretely in the brain figure out who you are. Now, with the NHLPA, who we work with, we know through their studies that athletes who know who they are outside of hockey play better hockey, and they play longer, injury-free, without addiction. There's a big link there. So we really try to help them with their self-esteem. We help them figure out what they like about themselves, what they don't like, what they want to stop, so that they're not in fear mode all the time. Because as a coach myself, I've been 35 years in volleyball, and I was a rower, played volleyball in the US. I distinctly remember I had an Olympic volleyball coach myself, and he was all about, you need to be smarter than everybody else because you're shorter. And so I had to think smarter, move better, be more cunning, and strategize faster. So with all that coaching that I got, and I was able to do it, these kids aren't trying to do this today. They're just kind of being programmed and moving where they think they should be. And here's the real kicker. I just spoke at the United Soccer Convention in LA, and Dr. Dan Abrahams and I were speaking to how kids don't know even their positions by 14 anymore, because coaches assume that they know them, but they do not know them. So walking through, as we do in hockey, the 200-foot ice or the pitch, if you will, we find that the kids are learning more foundations again, and then it helps them to develop. But right now, you can't do progressive difficult drills. It's getting really difficult. So if our self-esteem tanks, which it will if going on social media, if we feel like we're nervous because we're getting dopamine, well, we're now in fear mode. And our brains really like being over here in green. And our athletes, we try to have them in green 90% of the day, because in all perfect world, that doesn't exist to be all green all day. We try and teach them that there is no perfection in their sport. There's no perfection as a human being, but there is our best. And our best for our own health and for our own athleticism, which I do like creating and helping athletes become pretty fearless athletes and intense athletes. They know the difference in how they feel, and they have control of this. I love equipping them, because at the end of the 8 weeks, they're like, I don't even know who my child is anymore, the parents say, and the athletes don't even know who they are. They're just like this go-getter, unstoppable player. I don't want to play against them, especially my older pro athletes. I'm like, wow, what did I do? They become, and they feel. One guy was with the Calgary Flames. He's like, I feel animalistic. I'm like, great, that's awesome. And he's like, well, I feel like my brain's firing. I'm like, yeah, because you don't have dopamine in your brain. Dopamine slows down how we process every decision, and it almost slows down our speech. Can you go to number 4, which is habits? So of course, we all know this as adults. I'm even helping NHL coaches, OHL coaches, D1 coaches with their own phone habits, because it's creating quite a load of stress. And coaches today have more stress than 30 years ago. You're not only challenged by behavior, you're challenged by the revving of tech. And we're trying to help coaches to reduce their tech, to reduce their stress on their nervous system, and to balance it all out. So we help the athletes create a phone routine, and they stick to it, because I get intrinsic buy-in on almost day 3, because they're like feeling better. They're like, I can't figure out what it is or something. I feel like, I feel like sassier. I feel like there's a little swagger there. And I'm like, Great. I want that, but we don't want ego. Ego will not help us to be coachable. Confidence will help us, yes. Ego takes us to resistant learning, right? That's over here in another pile of, that's another course for you, which I can help with. But for the student athletes, we really try and help them to balance their day with their phones. Within 2 weeks, almost half our teams delete TikTok, and they've gone from 9 hours a day to 2. And the reason why I have this 8-week program designed is because in 30 days, we can change a habit. In 60 days, we can change the brain and how it thinks and how it's wired. And it's kind of staying with them a little bit. Now, the last one is number 5. That's decision making. If you want to move up there, Lario, decision making ultimately takes the hit. We don't feel confident anymore. They don't have the thinking skills. So they don't have self-talk, effective self-talk, how to stop negative self-talk skills. Those are strategies that we teach. They don't have the ability to reset, which is a huge psychological tool to change their situation from bad to good. And now you've asked them to go out on a pitch and perform. Well, here's something I hope that one statement you'll take with you. In order to have performance, they need to have cognitive skills. They've been on phones too long and they don't have them. So what we do is we equip them with their cognitive skills so you get performance. Many are stuck way over here. They're not even, if I were to test, and I have thousands of surveys now of kids where they are in their mental skills assessments, I would say even at our elite levels of 16 and up, 60% of them are below their standard of age in terms of their development in mentality, maturity, cognitive thinking, critical thinking, problem solving. That's worrisome to me. And in order to be that elite athlete who, and as you well know, coaches, you're not looking for perfection, you're looking for consistency and reliability in that athlete, right? So decision making comes from when everything is aligned in the brain. They can think all by themselves, how to control their emotions, what is not controllable. Controlling their phone helps them control their mind. It is linked together now because the nervous system is fueled by what words we say and what we see. It's just like if we eat, our digestive system is affected. So is our performance. Same with words. And these kids don't like themselves. They talk to themselves negatively all day. In fact, one kid put 47 times yesterday. He was 17. He talks negatively to himself. Another girl put 80 times. And the average in the one team I did at a club, 300 kids in Chicago at CCM, I think more than half didn't like themselves. That is a very telling sign of where we're at in terms of today. So there are ways of changing your practices. If you want to go up now, I had on my other slides ways to help you and strategies. So off the top of my head for coaches, what we suggest is have a parent meeting about the usage of phone and how you're raising the standard on your team and your club. We can't lower standards anymore. Behavior is difficult enough. I say raise the bar high. And the clubs that are changing their phone protocols, at home protocols with parents, parents are now in charge of making sure their kids are in bed again, not just leaving them to their devices in the room, because parents are on their phone for 5 to 9 hours too. So there's this whole disconnect at home and discipline, not just discipline as in behavior, but discipline as in habits. So we can help you with the parents. We can help you shape your tournament so they're not on the phones all the time, because when the brain has a game in the morning and you go home to get optimum rest, if you're on a phone for 6 hours before the next game, your next game's done. They're not going to show up here, because what's happened to the brain is it's been on social media for 6 hours. The medical science says that it feels like the body ran a marathon, but it didn't leave the couch. So they're depleted emotionally, physically, brain, nervous, adrenaline, heart, everything, because their heart rate has been high over 140 for probably 6 hours, being stimulated by slight microdoses of cocaine all day. So in order to get this performance, we have to look at helping the parents at home and helping to implement these phone strategies within your own daily practices and your expectations of games. So for instance, if you go to a game and then you're there for an hour before, we tell the kids not to be on the phones 2 hours before, because the brain and the nervous system needs time to calm down to get in green. That's how long it takes. So in order to do their check-in before they leave, we have them do a 3C check-in. Am I calm? Am I confident? And am I in control? And rate themselves out of 10. And we give them cognitive tools to move themselves. If you are a 6, that's not beast mode. That's not green. 8 is. 8 and above is green. How do you move from a 6 to an 8 before you leave the house? Walk, talk to somebody, but don't go on your phone. Roll. Do your mantras. Do your visualizations. How do you do it? Because I'm not going to be there. You're not going to be there. These kids need to get equipped. That's what we do. And they need to know how to adjust their emotions at a check-in. Then they do their confidence. Well, generally, if they're calm, we know they're a little bit more confident. But if they want to improve their confidence, it was a 7. Well, let's get to an 8, folks, before we leave that house. So how do we do it? They'll go back usually to mantras, usually to visualization, and they will usually breathe. They'll do their breathing. Some of them like meditation or brain spotting. We do teach them a bunch of different techniques, over 25 techniques. So they will choose, we call it the brain lab. They come here to the brain lab, and then I'm like, okay, we teach them the skills, and they're like, you know, there's like, my brain didn't like this, but I like this one. Okay, good. And they have a brain lab journal. They track their emotions at night. They track their emotions after practices, after games. And what we find over 8 weeks is a pattern. And they'll see it first before, well, I see it, but they'll see it and they'll be like, oh, I do negative self-talk at practice, not during school, but at practice. Okay, well, are you in green? And they'll start assessing themselves. So it's kind of beautiful. They'll do their control. And as long as they're an 8 out of 10, they're good to go. So if they can do their check-ins and know the tools mentally to get into that beast mode, we're going to see more kids play where they should, because right now, athleticism is probably the worst I've ever seen it in terms of actual development, the speed of development. And I'm not seeing these real legends like I used to. They used to pop out everywhere in every sport. And now we're seeing kids struggle, seeing kids quit, seeing kids even make it to the next level. Even their processing and positioning is not strong anymore. We're losing the battle. So hopefully you can take a little bit of this information today. Larry, do you want to go down? I don't know if I left I had some stats, I think. It might be a surprise, everyone. I don't know which one I gave them. I have like 15 of these.
I just want to jump in, Larissa.
Yeah, go.
Where's the handout? Is it this one?
Oh, sorry. That was for coaches. Can you go down? But no, this is the one I wanted to. The pie chart.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the next one. But here's the thing. At 16, when we get these kids, an influx. Parents are worried they want to go D1. I got the kids are worried they're not doing well, because 16 is this magical number where puberty, age, and the next level of adversity is really tough. And they're struggling. So this one pie here is their physical skills. This 1/3 here is their mental skills. It's in red. It is not green. Their habits, routines, academics, eating, diet, sleep, weak. They are losing 2/3 of their skills because some kids have started on a phone by 1 year old. Phones have been here since 2007. And 30 years ago, here's the thing, I've been doing this for a long time. I've been coaching this would all be white, virtually almost all white for almost all athletes at 16, except for maybe a few where one on a team would have a behavioral issue because of a parent situation. Now it's like 13 different brains working 13 different unusual ways, but they're just behind in behavior, adaptable skills. Soon as they learn it, they thrive and go. They're amazing. This pie, after working with us, is all white. And I think that's why we have a very high D1 rate and a very high retention rate, because we're giving them those skills that scouts, advisors, and recruiters are looking for. How many scouts do I get calls from daily? What do you think about this kid? I said, give me their turnover rate. What's their turnover rate? Tell me. Or do you know this person? Yes, I do. I say they lack phone control. I don't know working from the kid, but watching them, they're indecisive. I'd say they have phone addiction, but sometimes it's other things, and we'll get to the bottom of that clinically and we'll find out. But we can assess them with a mental skills assessment and see where they are in their confidence, see where they are in their leadership. How they think about themselves is actually one of the keys. So this pie chart here is very telling of where we are today with the majority of our 16-year-olds. Can you just go down one?
Yeah, I want to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Ask you a quick question?
You can ask anything you want, Valerio.
You've got a lot of fantastic information, and I'm not only speaking as a presenter, but I'm speaking as a coach. I run my own academy, and I see this daily. Like, so when I started coaching, I used one color of cones to set up my entire field. Okay. And now I have to color code every single activity because of this problem.
Like, you're breaking it down. So white goes here, purple goes here, right? Yes, I get it.
We're still having issues with kids going to the wrong cones because they didn't pay attention to what you were saying.
Right. So their brains are not tracking because they're visual learners now. They're not auditory. That's a big challenge for you.
Yeah.
So 40% more of the kids are visual. They're not listening to you. They're there, but they are not auditory. This is a huge problem in sports because being silenced on a phone watching is what the brain has been training, right? That's where they spend 200 hours a month and only 20 hours a month on soccer. So what do you want to be better at, right? So the auditory is lost. The auditory skills are declining really at a rapid rate that pretty much terrifies me, actually. And I have 3 kids in sports, and I coach as well, and I see, but I have also my athletes, and I'm seeing it as I watch them perform, that exact thing. And I go to their practices, not their games, because I want to see how they process, right? And so you're seeing it too, and you have to I bet you, Valeria, you're repeating yourself several times.
Constantly.
Yeah, and that's a waste.
And it's frustrating It's frustrating as a coach. Correct. Because you're trying to deliver a curriculum and you're trying to develop players at a high level, and you spend most of the time babysitting and repeating the activities. And in fact, I'm going to take this presentation.
Well, I'll give you a better one.
No. I'm going to take the actual recording of this, and I'm going to send it to all the parents in my academy, because because a lot of them have aspirations of going to the next level. And if you can't fix this,
only will. They have to know that number, right? Like, that number is very daunting.
They don't. But I think they need to understand what changes they need to make to their lifestyle and their child's lifestyle if they want their child to go to that next level. And
right.
That comment you made about that those players saying 17 things negative about themselves.
Plus,
we're going down a dangerous road.
We are. It's got to stop.
It's got to stop, because if forget about the player right now. Let's talk about the person.
This is just the human. This is just the human we're equipping, because if we equip the human, here's the cool thing about this. All the kids that come here become faster thinking humans and more confident, and 1% better every day is what we aim for. But then they become twice the athlete better every day. Twice. So if we equip the human first and help their brain function, then they'll just kill it for you. They know exactly what is expected of them. And now let's just say, like, we're working with different leagues in Canada, like different soccer leagues. But if we take the bottom number of kids quitting soccer right now, we're in the decline, right? So our Olympic development is almost being siloed, not pyramided, because kids would rather stay home, not be with a coach, not be with having this strife and challenge, because they don't know how to handle adversity. And when we go in to speak to teams, like, we talk to the parents, we talk to the teams, we coach the athletes, and we help the coaches' staff learn these new techniques. I'm working with McMaster University coaches right now and NHL coaches, and they're learning these new techniques because they don't know how to connect. They don't know what to tell the brain, because you're working with so many different levels of brain now, instead of used to be 16-year-olds were all on this plateau, right? This standard. Now, you basically, if you have a 16-year-old coaches, you essentially are coaching a 13-year-old brain. Just so you know, that's where you're at. That's where we're at right now. That's psychiatry. That's American Psychiatric of Sports. That's the Canadian Psychiatry of Sports. Those are their studies. So we have to adapt as coaches, and we have the material to help you. And I want to stop coaches from quitting. They're quitting because of frustration, right? Not because they can't coach. And that's interesting, because if they had more tools and we had higher standards, no more behavioral problems, no, they're gone. We have to only let kids play who can actually behave now. That's what they're doing in Europe. Sorry, your kid's a problem, go.
And I completely agree with you, because I have high standards and I hold people to those standards. And the problem is that in Canada, I'm trying to be nice here because it's a presentation, but coaches and organizations don't have,
without honesty.
Coaches and organizations don't have support from the parents. If they don't feel that, if they feel that their parenting is being challenged, they'll just pick up and go to another organization. But I think parents, if parents really want their child to go to the next level, forget about even sports. If they even want to be successful in the business world, they got to take this presentation and start really, really examining their lifestyle and how they raise their kids if they want to be successful. It can't always be the coach's fault. I use this example. So there's 245 hours in a week. Okay? If I'm with my team 3 training sessions in a game, that's 7 hours a week. What are they doing for the other 238 hours?
Right? How many? So I always say this, coaches, and I use this as a standard, because parents should never let you. I don't care about parent support anymore, because I do what's best for the athletes. And when you have strong leadership within your club or an academy, because we work in Virginia with different like soccer academies, and we work with the Lionesses, they're building a different standard. If children can't behave and conform, parents, you're now released. They're actually changing the policies to change behavior, and it's working, because we can't, sports are not sustainable right now until we change policy, right? Until we change and go back to old school values, but the new way of living, right? So that's kind of where we help with that consulting piece. We do it with David Ricca with the US as well, with Vominos partnerships. But I just want to go back. We do have the presentations for the parents, but if we can help the parents at home, because the parents are the #1 determining factor in your child's lives. Let's put that out there first. So parents, if you're not doing those jobs, coaches can't even do theirs at all. There's that balance, right? So I always equip my parents if I'm coaching a team and say, I need you to start doing these at home. This is my standard. This is what I expect. I don't get pushback from parents at all. I haven't in 6 years since I've been doing this, because they hug us because we're helping them at home. They're just at a loss with what to do today. And they need redirection, and we need education badly to fix this problem. So we have this sport ecosystem package where we go in and we help all three. And it totally in 8 weeks can change, in 1 year can change a whole club, right? And that's what we need to do. Club by club, league by league, association by association, help the refs. It's not the refs' problem, right? If the parents are yelling at them, athletes are telling them to F off now, that's not acceptable to me, right? I'm sorry, but we have to have reset standards and refocus on those standards and morals to guide us and raise the bar. And if we keep slipping, I'm afraid what sports are going to look like in Canada, because we're already slipping behind many countries that are actually smaller than us, right? Or equal size. So we have a lot of work to do. So sorry I don't have the actual presentation, because it was loaded as a different slideshow presentation. But does anyone have any questions or anything right now? We'll open it up to, like, is there a chat in here? I don't even know.
There is. Well, we do have one question.
Okay, yeah, because I can't see anything. So
I can see it. Yeah.
Okay,
The
as long
question
as you
is,
okay.
the question is there research or findings on impact of e-readers on the athlete's brain development?
Can I ask for do you mean e-readers, like a Kindle?
I'm assuming that
Is that
that's what the
what you mean?
person means.
Oh, okay. So here's the difference, and here's the rating. Pornography, gambling, TikTok, social media, gaming, types of Fortnite reward system in the brain, games, apps. Then it's kind of more like Snapchat. Those are all of our addictive points. Reading, watching TV is fine, because anywhere we can actually increase focus stamina, which is how long we can focus now. Like, I have kids who can't focus for more than a minute. I taught a hockey academy this morning. The teachers and the coaches, the NHL guys, are in the room with these kids, and they still can't sit and focus, yet some could. It's very interesting. So focus stamina is really important. The e-reader, I don't worry about, but I would buy the blue light glasses to read at night, because then you're not affected by the blue light, and then you can shut your brain off still. So that's what I would recommend.
Okay. So I have a question for you, because on this call we have all coaches.
Okay,
so
great.
what would be your advice to coaches to set up a program or an environment that would help improve the person's ability to focus and think and problem solve? Because soccer is all about solving problems. You're
All the
solving
time.
problems the entire
Triangles
game.
and triangles, right? We're always solving problems in triangles, right? In soccer. Actually, the same as in hockey.
Yeah.
Same thing. So I really like the transmission, because I do both. We do have a lot of soccer and a lot of hockey. And then I got a dart player. So it's like, and golf. So I'm like, that's different. So if you're asking what we do, we'd set up sort of a meeting with a coach. We meet with them, and then we go through our athlete program with the athletes, and we have a talk with the parents, and then we give the parents their homework to do. But it's kind of a new standard for a coach to set. But when a club or leadership usually hears about this, they're game on, because they're really getting tired of behavioral issues, right? So they can email me, mentalgameacademy@gmail.com. You can go to our website, thementalgameacademy.ca. Right now, we're moving to mentalgameacademy.com in about a month. But I'm on LinkedIn. Like, feel free to talk to me, because we actually have a coaching support group where coaches can come and get tips to change things where they are and are not supported. But really, you need the strong leadership at the top who has the same value systems to make the change. Or you bring people like me in, and I'm the bad wolf, and I go in and do it all myself. So I'm okay to do it all myself, but I get buy-in. And eventually they see that it works.
So for a club that can't have the resources to bring you in, basically you're saying strong leadership with your expectations. So what would be some expectations you would want people to implement to start to change some of this behavior?
I would stress zero tolerance in rude behavior. I would stress that we are going to now implement phone strategies to decrease, like, because really what you're allowing is a complete mental block when you want them to mentally perform, if you have the phones all around them all the time at your clubs. So I would implement phone strategies and policies at the top of your leadership and start at that point, but also focus on cognitive performance, not mental performance. They can't mentally perform. 70% of athletes between the ages of 12 and 18 can't do it right now. You want them to, but they don't know there's 9 steps in the brain to think positively. I don't know if you guys have my psychiatry and psychology here, but it takes several steps to tell the brain to stop negative self-talking, to be confident, to switch it to the wiring to the effective and productive. And we're not really positive focused here. We're productively talking to ourselves, and the kids have to talk self-talk. So encourage stronger focus on mental capacity, and mental fitness would be one of my other suggestions as well. Does that help you answer your question? We have a list, like a consulting package, where extend that list to several different things, like higher coaching standards. Teaching a program like this to your coaches helps actually equip them and make them feel really confident. Now they know how to deal with the brains in front of them, because you have 17 brains on your team now, not just kind of all close in one age group. You've got 13-year-old mindsets on a 17-year-old team. So that's tough.
Which not only to take a step back,
yeah,
who are living 17 different lifestyles, and you don't know what they've done throughout the day, right? You don't know how much sleep they've had. You don't know what they've eaten all day. You don't know how much of the social media or the phone access they've been on. You have none of that information, and you're trying to put a session together where you're trying to get the best out of these players, right?
Right. And when we talk about, we have a whole academy, a leadership academy that we work with my VP in Connecticut. And the leadership academy focuses on two things. If you don't have mental IQ and phone IQ, you can't have leadership IQ. And right now, no one has strong leadership. Like, okay, I shouldn't say no one in generalize, but very few kids have the mental IQ and confidence to lead and to have that leadership. So we do have those components of leadership as well within helping, because that's even something that coaches are struggling with too. They don't have the leadership on their teams. They're all in fighting, and you have your chain link of iron links on a team. If one of them is angry that day, that link is gone. If one of them is sad that day, if one of them's distracted, well, now you got 6 links automatically I would take out. They're distracted. So now you've got 8 players on your team that might be functioning that day. This is what we're dealing with now. How many links do you want to have that are dysfunctional because it's maybe too much phone time or a situation at home? So we have to each be much more emotionally intelligent and aware at equipping these each links in their brain, which are their brains, and knowing where they are so that we can get their mental IQ all in the same level. And now you can kick butt. Now you can. And there's amazing teams that have done this. They're doing so well. And our athletes, individual athletes, they're either going D1, signing contracts, or they're making the next level teams, which is exactly what we want. And that's every kid that's come through here. And we actually have parent testimonies. I have D1, OHL, NHL. I have soccer academy feedback for you. So if you guys need any help, I'm here to help. That's what we're here for.
I'm definitely going to reach out to you and try to do something with my academy, because for me as a coach, it's frustrating going to a session and knowing that you're going to have to babysit for the first 10-15 minutes, right?
Well, yeah, because if your brain is on social media right before you shut off your phone, before they jump in with you, guess what you guys have to deal with 22 minutes fog brain. 22 minutes for them to actually change their focus. That's how long the brain takes. So if they get one distraction, going to check their phones at halftime, they're done for the second half, essentially. So this is what we're dealing with hockey as well. They're on there. I'm like, no, phones are gone 2 hours before. Before you come to my practice, you are not on your phones for 2 hours. That is my standard. If you don't want to be in here at this club because I want to win, go somewhere else. And that's my standard. Because I know this is best for your brain, it's best for your body, it's best for your development, right?
I agree with you. Like once the players arrive, there's the cell phone. I don't want to see it. If I see it, you're going home. That's my expectation. But I think I have to start.
Should be doing.
I think I have to start talking to the parents about adding a little bit more of this stuff. But then you're relying on parents playing their role. But I think that if a parent is serious,
yeah, we don't. We get the buy-in because they're like, oh, I do it a little bit differently. So our talk for parents is more of a scare tactic, medical. I show them the medical statistics of the kids. And then I'm like, if you're not doing these things, if your athlete can't do them, they will struggle to go past 16. And those are the numbers. So I think our scare tactic works pretty much, because then they're like, oh, we need your help. And they hug us and they leave, right? So I don't have, in fact, I get parents calling me for more help. It's interesting. Once you open the door to help and education and a change and a way to improve things, parents will come. It's really interesting.
Everything's about education, right? The more you educate people, the more they'll have a
Absolutely.
better understanding. And I think,
Yeah.
and listen, the world has changed. Parents are maybe working. It's busy. It's crazy. But
Yeah.
I think that if you want your child to be that high performance player that's going to go to the next level, it's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle that you're going to have to commit to, right?
Mhm.
Because your child's competing not only with Canadian kids, your child's competing with players around the world. And if
Yes, and
other
Europeans
countries are
are
more advanced than us,
way more advanced. In fact, Canada is so far behind, I'm a little nervous. And not just in hockey, but I'm seeing it in soccer. Like now I'm more exposed to football. And I know a lot of the Canadian women's. I know Jessie Fleming, and I know some of the girls on the team now, and they're having problems because they don't want to be on social media, but their businesses are taking them there. So we just changed them to laptops. But here's where I was going with that. So in Europe, their children are raised much more rigidly, culturally, more restrictions. Schools are different, and we're kind of become chaotic with no discipline. And discipline actually helps kids become more resilient. So that's why it's safe to say that kids need more consequences and discipline, because they're different. Discipline can mean habits. Discipline can mean expectations. Discipline can mean, yeah, don't punch Johnny in the face. But discipline overall, a spectrum, we need more of it here in Canada. I'm seeing far too more leniency, and it's hurting athletic programs. Heather, do you know Heather Moffat? Does anyone? Heather Moffat works with a lot of different high-level programs here in Canada, Burnaby FC, all that, and they're having to change their policies to raise the standards of behavior and expectations for parents. Right?
and I'm no expert on this topic, but I believe that children
You have
crave.
experience.
I believe children crave discipline and structure.
They do.
They crave it and they need it.
Crave it. Yeah,
And
they
getting back to Europe,
actually.
getting back to Europe on a personal level, like I've got cousins that are 3, 4, 5 year olds, and you can hold an adult conversation with them,
Yeah.
and they'll converse back with you. Here,
Yeah.
you ask a kid, how do they do today? And they're,
Huh? What? Bro? I know. Yeah. Right. Right. And yeah, I do see it. And we've lost conversation, right? Because phones quiet the brain, and they don't help us to develop our self-talk skills and our talk skills. Phones shut down the linguistic part of our brain while we're watching video. And several of the American studies with John Hutton, Dr. Twenge, Dr. Huberman, all these leading PhDs and medical physicians are on it. It's already showing signs. The earliest signs of dementia now are in 20-year-olds from watching. That's crazy.
So what's taking the school board so long then to jump on a zero cell phone policy in their schools? Then if there's this much data,
I think we need more of a medical push. And I think now we're seeing the pendulum is here. Kids aren't behaving, but the school has to start disciplining again. Like my kid, I don't want to go down this road, but I left education. I said, if you put phones in the classroom, I can't compete with dopamine. I'm out, because the long-term memory does not remember anything. If you keep zapping your phone, it stays in the short-term memory and then it leaves. So what are you doing? You're not educating anymore. You're kind of letting them sit in class and see a couple things. So the structure of education, banning them is the first thing. But now it's going to, I think it's coming. I think all of this is coming. And I've been doing this now for 10 to 15 years. I've banned the phones in Ontario for elementary. I think I wrote a note every week and kept mailing it until until they heard. And now I wanted high school. So high school, that's when puberty is happening. The brain is under actual different hormones. This is where we should probably be banning it too. But as a sports consultant, it's not going to help your club any way, shape, or form. In fact, it's going to bring down the mentality and the mental game of your athletes. So does anybody have any questions? Any other questions?
There's another question. It's in British Columbia, our schools are now phone/device free zones. That's the hours before practice. Players are frantically catching up on their news. Can you provide ideas on how to unplug the players in advance of their arrival to practice so that they may so that they may focus properly as parents feel this is a daunting task?
Well, it goes back to that's a very good question, but I have several answers. You're the coach. You can actually set a precedent that if you're on my team, I don't want you on your phone for an hour. I want you off your phone an hour before my practice. So figure it out. Like that means shorten the time on your phone, right? And that's a standard. And then you're going to need the parent buy-in, and generally you'll get it. So I don't have a problem with parents when we raise standards. Parents have a problem when there's no consistency or leadership and there's favoritism. So if you have that issue, what I've recommended is there's simply no phones, not when you want to be on my team. Because when we show them the education about the brain, you're really not here in practice, but you are in body, right? That's too close to a practice time. So it's going to take 22 minutes to undo what the brain just saw for an hour. And then half your practice is done, right? Like, how do you have an evolution, a progressive practice that evolves into a higher level drill that you're trying to get them to do, but they're still not able to even, some of them remember the positioning, right? So these kids are really behind. And I think it's our job as coaches to make sure we catch them up, but we also have to recognize that this is a much larger problem and they need to be caught up in their mental skills to catch up, right? Because we're falling behind in terms of ability and athletic ability. When we look at our Olympians and our Olympic teams, there's just not enough bodies below coming up with the strength that we need. So hopefully that answers your question.
So then my question to you, Larissa, is if we're gonna put a standard in that there's no phones, what's our then check and balances as a coach to make sure that's being followed?
Well, really simple. The phone goes in the bag. The parents can check the phones. The kids can show you their phones, right? They can show their screen time. My kids show me their screen time, my athletes, right? I want it logged. I want to know. If you're on my team, I want to see your screen time is 2 hours a day or less. That's my standard. And they show you, and they're 1.5, 2. I let on the weekends a little bit go, but you have so much more to put into your game and into your resumes and into yourselves. Why are you on a phone? So I come from the educational standpoint. And so I'm like, we get a documentary, go do Pilates, fill your time with other things, because if your practice time is less than your screen time, don't complain about your playing time. That's my standard.
100%.
Right. Yeah. Do we have any other questions? Because I got actually an athlete at 3:30.
Yeah, no. I think we all have to get off. There's nothing else.
Cool.
But
I do have talks to help with, like control, leadership, phone routines. I can guide coaches through how to change their policies too. We can talk about that anytime.
But
yeah,
we'll definitely be reaching out on a personal level.
Sure.
Because I'd like you to do something with our academy, but the information was fantastic. I think a lot of us coaches are experiencing this stuff, and it's good to just bring it all together. It's good to bring it all together with you to help solidify some of the frustrations and the things we're experiencing on a daily basis. Sorry.
Yeah, and it's a struggle because something needs to change, because the pendulum is here for all of you, teetering on the line of quitting. And that's dangerous for me. I just lost 2 of our best female coaches, hockey coaches in Ontario, because of parents the other day. And so now we're talking to the leadership at the helm, to change that. You can't do these things, because now we got to protect coaches. This is where it's become more prevalent. So I think it's about altering the way we do things to suit the needs of today's kids, right?
I like the first question I get from some coaches that are applying for me is what's my expectation with dealing with parents, because some of them just don't anymore. It's frustrating because it's actually hurting the athletes if the best coaches don't want to get involved in the game, because of another element that has nothing to even do with the game, right? I think
Correct.
the parents' role should be bring them to practice in the game, leave them or her, go do whatever you have to do,
In Europe,
come
that's
back,
what we do.
and then just
They
say,
leave them.
hey, how was the session? Did you have fun? What did you learn? What could you have improved on? And leave it at that.
Yeah, well, that's a European standard. Like in Germany and England, you drop off, you don't stay. Right? They don't even want you to stay. They want independence from you, the parent. Right? Right? And that's important to keep growing. But I'm here for any consulting, coaching, athlete education. If you want me to come and speak to your teams, clubs, etc., I'll nail it down for the parents. Not a problem. But we're here to help. We also do partnerships. We become a cognitive performance company for many different clubs as well. We set standards that way. So if you're interested in any of that, just let us know. But thank you for having me. Thank you for being open. Sorry, my presentation didn't work. Usually I'm presenting like 5-6 times a week too. So this is a new way to do it, but thanks.
Hopefully this is not part of one of your tactics to get people to pay attention.
I'm like, whoops.
Thank you very much.
John. Can you hear me, John? Are you still there?
Yeah. Sorry, what'd you say?
I said thank you.
Oh, thanks very much for presenting.
No problem. No problem.
Thank you.
All right. All right,
Thank
everybody.
you to everybody. Larissa, thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you to all our guests. We'll definitely send this out to all the people that are registered and were current members of the NSCAC. If you want more information on this, please become a member now at nscac.ca. Thank you very much, and have a great day.